The horse thundered past the general store with wild eyes and flared nostrils, its rider clinging desperately to the saddle horn, as terrified screams pierced the hot afternoon air of Chisum Ranch, New Mexico. Finn Whitmore looked up from the fence post. He was mending just in time to see the young woman lose her grip entirely, her body tilting dangerously to one side as the mare bolted toward the rocky terrain beyond town. Without thinking, he dropped his tools and sprinted toward his own horse, a steady gelding named Copper who stood grazing nearby. In one fluid motion, he swung himself into the saddle and urged Copper forward, his heart hammering as he calculated the distance between himself and the runaway. The woman's bonnet flew off, revealing long auburn hair that whipped behind her like a banner. She was maybe 20 yards ahead, and the horse showed no signs of slowing. Finn leaned low over Copper's neck, speaking urgently to his mount, asking for speed the gelding had not given in months. The distance closed. 15 yards. 10. He could hear the woman's gasps now, see her white-knuckled hands struggling to maintain any kind of hold. "Hold on," he shouted, though he doubted she could hear him over the pounding hooves and rush of wind. "Just hold on." 5 yards now, and Finn guided Copper alongside the runaway mare. The ground here was treacherous, studded with rocks and sudden dips that could snap a horse's leg in an instant. If the woman fell now, at this speed, she would be lucky to survive with only broken bones. Finn reached out, his fingers brushing the mare's bridle, missing, trying again. The third attempt found purchase, and he gripped the leather strap with all his strength, pulling back while simultaneously commanding his own horse to slow. "Easy now," he said, his voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "Easy, girl. Nobody's going to hurt you." The mare fought him, tossing her head, but Finn held firm. Gradually, both horses began to slow from a gallop to a canter, then a trot, and finally a walk. The woman was trembling so violently she could barely remain in the saddle. When both horses came to a complete stop, she made a small sound that was half sob, half gasp, and started to slide sideways. Finn dismounted in an instant and caught her before she hit the ground. She felt small in his arms, fragile, though he could tell from the way she had held on that she possessed more strength than her delicate frame suggested. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with shock, and for a moment she simply stared at him as though unable to comprehend that she was no longer in motion, no longer in danger. "You're safe now," he said gently, helping her find her feet, though he kept one hand at her elbow in case her legs gave out. "You're safe." She nodded slowly, then looked at the mare who stood nearby, sides heaving, eyes still showing white around the edges. "I don't know what happened," she said, her voice shaky. "One moment everything was fine, and then something spooked her and she just ran. I tried to control her, but I've only had a handful of lessons and I didn't know what to do." Finn examined the mare, speaking softly as he approached. The horse shied away at first, but he persisted, and eventually she allowed him to check her over. He found the problem almost immediately. A sharp burr had worked its way under the saddle blanket, digging into the mare's flesh with every movement. No wonder she had panicked. "Found your culprit," he said, carefully removing the saddle and extracting the burr. The mare's skin was abraded where the burr had rubbed, but it was not a serious injury. "She'll be fine with some salve and rest. You rent her from the livery." "Yes," the woman said, coming closer now, though she still eyed the horse warily. "I arrived in Chisum Ranch 3 days ago. I'm staying with my aunt and uncle while I look for a teaching position. Mrs. Keating at the livery said this mare was gentle and suitable for beginners." "She is, normally," Finn assured her. "This could have happened to anyone." A burr that's sharp, lodged like that, would send even the most patient horse into a panic. He looked at her more carefully now that the immediate crisis had passed. She was lovely, with green eyes that reminded him of new grass after spring rain and a scattering of freckles across her nose. "I'm Finn Whitmore. I work at the Double Bar Ranch about 6 miles north of town." "Lily Kensington," she replied, offering her hand. When he shook it, he noticed her fingers were still trembling. "Thank you for saving my life, Mr. Whitmore. I don't know how I can ever repay you." "No repayment necessary," he said, though he found himself reluctant to release her hand. "But I would suggest not riding alone until you're more confident. The terrain out here can be unforgiving, and if something like this happens again when nobody's around to help." He did not finish the sentence, but he did not need to. Lily wrapped her arms around herself despite the July heat. "I know. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. Back in Philadelphia, ladies don't ride unless they're in the park with grooms attending them. I thought out here I could be more independent, more capable. Instead, I nearly got myself killed." There was such frustration in her voice that Finn felt a surge of sympathy. He knew what it was like to want to prove yourself, to push beyond the limitations others set for you. "Tell you what," he said, making a decision that surprised him even as the words left his mouth. "I have Sundays off mostly. If you want, I could teach you to ride properly. Not just how to sit in the saddle and hope the horse behaves, but really ride. How to control your mount, how to read a horse's signals, how to handle situations like what happened today." Lily's eyes widened. "You would do that, but you don't even know me." "I know you've got courage," he said. "Most people who went through what you just did would never want to see a horse again. But you're standing here talking about wanting to be more capable. That tells me you're worth helping." For the first time since he had caught her, Lily smiled. It transformed her entire face, chasing away the fear and replacing it with something bright and hopeful. "Then yes," she said. "I would be very grateful for your instruction, Mr. Whitmore." "Finn," he corrected. "And we should get you and this mare back to town before anyone sends out a search party." The ride back was slow and careful, with Finn leading the mare while Lily rode behind him on Copper. She sat stiffly at first, her hands gripping his waist with perhaps more force than necessary, but gradually she relaxed. By the time they reached the main street of Chisum Ranch, she was asking questions about how he had known to approach the mare the way he had, what signs he had looked for to assess her temperament, how long it took to become truly skilled at horsemanship. Finn answered each question patiently, surprised by how much he enjoyed explaining things to her. She was sharp, asking follow-up questions that showed she was really thinking about what he said rather than just making conversation. When they reached the livery, Mrs. Keating rushed out, her face creased with worry. "Lily, thank goodness you're all right. Sam Crawford saw you racing out of town and came to tell me. I've been beside myself." She looked at Finn with recognition and relief. "Finn Whitmore. I should have known if anyone could catch her, it would be you. Your father raised you right with horses." "Just lucky I was nearby," Finn said, though the mention of his father brought the familiar ache to his chest. Thomas Whitmore had died 2 winters ago, crushed when a spooked stallion had knocked him into a fence post. The injury had seemed minor at first, but infection had set in, and within a week he was gone. Finn pushed the memory aside and helped Lily dismount. The mare had a burr under her saddle. Not anybody's fault, just bad luck. Mrs. Keating immediately began fussing over the horse, apologizing profusely to Lily and promising it would never happen again. Finn waited until Lily looked his way, then tipped his hat. "I'll be in town Sunday morning around 8, he said. "Meet me here if you still want those lessons." "I'll be here," Lily promised, and something in her voice made him believe she truly would be. The rest of the week passed slowly for Finn. He went through his usual routines at the Double Bar Ranch, helping move cattle to fresh grazing, mending fences, breaking a young mare to saddle, but his mind kept drifting to Sunday morning. He told himself he was just being helpful, that any decent man would do the same, but he knew it was more than that. There had been something about Lily Kensington, something beyond her beauty, that had caught his attention and refused to let go. Sunday morning dawned clear and hot, promising another scorching day. Finn arrived at the livery early and found Lily already waiting. She wore a split-riding skirt that was practical rather than fashionable, and her hair was plaited in a long braid down her back. When she saw him, her face lit up with that same transformative smile he remembered from their first meeting. "I wasn't sure you would really come," she admitted. "I thought perhaps you had offered in the heat of the moment and would regret it later." "I don't make promises I don't intend to keep," Finn said. He had brought Copper and also a gentle bay mare named Daisy who belonged to the ranch owner's daughter. Daisy was patient and responsive, perfect for a student. "Today we're going to start with the basics. Not riding yet, just understanding horses. Too many people try to sit on a horse without first learning how horses think, and that's when trouble happens." For the next 2 hours, Finn showed Lily how to approach a horse correctly, how to read their body language, how to understand when a horse was nervous or calm, aggressive or friendly. She was an attentive student, focusing completely on what he was telling her, practicing each motion until she got it right. When she successfully calmed Daisy, who had been made skittish by a rattling wagon, the triumph on her face made Finn's chest feel strangely warm. "You're a natural," he told her honestly. "Some people never develop that sense for what a horse is feeling." "I think I'm just motivated not to end up in another runaway situation," Lily said, but she was clearly pleased by the compliment. "When can we actually ride?" "Next week," Finn promised. "I know it seems slow, but trust me, this foundation will make everything else easier." As they walked through town afterward, Lily told him more about herself. She had grown up in Philadelphia, the daughter of a banker who had died the previous year. Her mother had remarried within 6 months, to a man Lily clearly did not care for, and the household had become tense and uncomfortable. When her mother's sister, who lived in New Mexico territory with her rancher husband, had written suggesting Lily come stay with them for a while, she had jumped at the chance. "I thought it would be an adventure," she said, her voice wistful. "And it is, but it's also frightening. Everything here is so different from what I'm used to. The distances, the isolation, the constant awareness that danger could be around any corner. Back home, I knew every street, every shop, every face I passed. Here, I feel like I'm always one wrong step away from disaster." "Fear is not a bad thing," Finn said. "It keeps you cautious, but you can't let it paralyze you either. The trick is learning to respect the dangers without being ruled by them." Lily looked at him thoughtfully. "Is that what you're trying to teach me?" "With the horses, in part," he admitted. "But mostly I just want you to be safe, and to feel confident enough to enjoy all the good things about being out here. The freedom, the space, the incredible sunsets and starry nights. You can't appreciate any of that if you're too afraid to step outside." They had reached the house where Lily was staying, a neat adobe building with a covered porch and flowering plants in pots. She turned to face him, and in the morning sunlight her eyes were more gold than green. "Thank you, Finn, not just for the lesson, but for understanding. Most people back home thought I was foolish for coming out here. They said I would never manage, that I was too soft for frontier life." "Then they didn't know you very well," Finn said. "I've only spent a few hours with you, and I can already tell you're stronger than you think." The blush that colored her cheeks made her freckles stand out more prominently. "I'll see you next Sunday," she said softly, then turned and went inside before he could respond. Finn rode back to the ranch with a lightness in his heart he had not felt in a long time. Life had been hard since his father's death, full of responsibility and long hours and constant worry about making ends meet. His mother had moved to Santa Fe to live with her sister, unable to bear staying in the house where she had spent 25 years with the man she loved. Finn had sold the family property and taken the job at the Double Bar Ranch because it paid well and came with a small cabin where he could live. He had told himself he was content, that work was enough, but now he realized how lonely he had been. The second lesson went even better than the first. Finn had Lily actually riding Daisy, starting with a walk around the paddock behind the livery. She was nervous at first, her body rigid with tension, but as Finn talked her through each step, explaining what to do with her legs, her hands, her weight, she began to relax. By the end of the session, she was trotting, her face flushed with exertion and joy. "That was wonderful," she exclaimed when she finally dismounted. "I actually felt like I was in control, like the horse and I were working together instead of fighting each other." "That's exactly what it should feel like," Finn said, pleased by her progress. "You're doing remarkably well, Lily. Most beginners take weeks to get where you are now." "I have a good teacher," she said, and the way she looked at him made his pulse quicken. They fell into a pattern over the following weeks. Every Sunday morning, Finn would arrive at the livery, and they would spend 2 or 3 hours working with the horses. He taught her how to canter, how to guide a horse through turns and over obstacles, how to mount and dismount smoothly, how to manage different temperaments and moods. Between lessons, Lily practiced on her own, though she was always careful to stay close to town and to ride horses she had worked with before. But the lessons were just the beginning. After each session, they would walk through Chisum Ranch together, talking about everything and nothing. Finn learned that Lily loved to read, that she had taught herself basic Spanish from a grammar book before coming west, that she dreamed of opening her own school one day where children could learn practical skills alongside traditional academics. Lily learned that Finn had never been farther east than Texas, that he loved working with horses more than anything else in the world, that he still missed his father every single day, but had made peace with the loss. The more time they spent together, the harder it became for Finn to pretend this was just about teaching riding. He found himself thinking about Lily during the long workdays, wondering what she was doing, whether she was thinking of him too. When Sunday morning came around, he would wake before dawn, too eager to sleep, and would arrive in town early just for the chance to see her a few minutes sooner. One Sunday in late August, after a lesson where Lily had successfully managed a gallop for the first time, they rode out together to a spot Finn loved, a small canyon with a spring-fed pool at its base. Cottonwood trees provided shade, and the sound of water trickling over rocks was soothing in the afternoon heat. They let the horses drink and graze while they sat on a flat boulder, sharing the lunch Lily had packed. "I got a letter from my mother yesterday," Lily said, staring out at the water. "She wants me to come home. She says I've had my adventure and now it's time to be sensible. She's even arranged for me to meet the son of one of her husband's business associates, a man who apparently has excellent prospects." Finn's stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing yet," Lily said. "I've been trying to figure out what to say. Part of me knows I should go back. I can't stay with my aunt and uncle forever, and I haven't found a teaching position yet. The school here already has a teacher, and the nearest town that might need one is 30 miles away. Without my own income, I'm just imposing on their hospitality." "You're not imposing," Finn said, though he had no real knowledge of her aunt and uncle's feelings. He just could not bear the thought of her leaving. "And teaching isn't the only option. You could find other work. Like what? Lily asked, and there was genuine curiosity in her voice rather than challenge. I'm educated, but I have no practical skills beyond what you've taught me. I can't cook particularly well. I've never done my own laundry. I barely know how to sew. In Philadelphia, those things didn't matter because we had servants. But here, if I want to make my own way, I need to actually be useful. Finn wanted to tell her she was already useful, that her intelligence and kindness and courage were worth more than any domestic skill, but he knew that would not pay bills or provide security. Instead, he said, you could learn. You learned to ride and you learned fast. Why not other things? Lily was quiet for a long moment, watching the play of light on the water. Can I tell you something? She finally said. Something I haven't told anyone else, of course. I don't want to go back to Philadelphia, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought maybe I would, once I got lonely enough or scared enough or tired of feeling like I don't fit in. But the truth is, I've never been happier than I am right now. Everything here is hard and uncertain, but it's also real in a way my old life never was. Back there, I was just playing a role, being the proper daughter, wearing the right dresses, saying the right things. Out here, I feel like I'm finally discovering who I actually am. Finn's heart was pounding so hard he was certain she must be able to hear it. Then don't go back, he said. Stay. She turned to look at him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. It's not that simple, Finn. I can't just stay because I want to. I need a reason, a purpose, a way to support myself. What if you had all those things? The words came out before he could stop them, before he could think about whether this was wise or foolish. What if you stayed and taught me to read better? I can manage simple things, but my education stopped when I was 12 and had to start working full-time. There are probably other ranch hands and cowboys around who are the same way. You could offer lessons in the evenings, charge a small fee. It wouldn't be a school exactly, but it would be teaching, and it would be helping people. Lily's expression shifted from sad to thoughtful. That's actually a wonderful idea, she said slowly. I would need space to hold classes, but maybe I could ask Reverend Martinez if I could use the church hall a few evenings a week, and if I could earn enough to contribute to my aunt and uncle's household. It could work, Finn said, feeling hope bloom in his chest. It could really work, Lily. She smiled then, that brilliant smile that made everything else fade away. You know what I think, she said softly. I think you care less about learning to read better and more about having a reason for me to stay. Finn knew he should deny it, should play it safe, but he had never been good at hiding his feelings. You're right, he admitted. I do want you to stay. These past weeks, spending time with you, teaching you to ride, talking to you, it's been the best part of my days. More than that, actually. You've made me realize how much I was just going through the motions before, how empty everything felt. I look forward to Sundays now the way I used to look forward to Christmas when I was a kid. And the thought of you leaving, of never seeing you again, that makes me feel like I can't quite catch my breath. Lily's eyes had gone wide, and a tear spilled down her cheek. Finn, she whispered. I know it's too soon, he continued, unable to stop now that he had started. I know you probably think I'm crazy for feeling this way after just a couple months, but I can't pretend anymore, Lily. I can't just be your riding instructor and your friend when what I really want is so much more than that. For a moment that felt like an eternity, Lily did not respond. Then she reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. It's not too soon, she said. Or if it is, then I'm crazy too, because I feel exactly the same way. Every Sunday I tell myself I should keep some distance, that I should be practical and sensible. But then I see you and all those resolutions just evaporate. You make me feel brave, Finn. You make me feel like I can be the person I want to be instead of the person everyone else expects me to be." Finn did not remember making the decision to kiss her. One moment they were sitting there, hands clasped, staring at each other, and the next his lips were on hers, and she was kissing him back with a passion that matched his own. Her free hand came up to cup his cheek, and he wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be, sweet and tender, but also charged with the depth of feeling they had been holding back for weeks. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Finn rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said again. "Please stay, Lily." "I'll stay," she promised. "I'll write to my mother tonight and tell her I'm staying." The next few months passed in a blur of happiness. Lily did approach Reverend Martinez about using the church hall, and the kind priest agreed immediately, thrilled at the idea of offering education to those who had missed out on formal schooling. Word spread quickly, and soon Lily had a dozen students ranging in age from 16 to 50, all eager to improve their reading and writing. She charged 50 cents per month, and though it was not a fortune, it was enough for her to contribute to her aunt and uncle's household and to feel like she was earning her keep. Finn was one of her most dedicated students, showing up faithfully every Tuesday and Thursday evening. She taught him patiently, helping him work through books that had once seemed impossibly complex. But more than the academic learning, Finn treasured the time they spent together. After the other students left, they would often stay behind, talking in the quiet church hall about their days, their dreams, their growing feelings for each other. On Sundays, they continued their riding lessons, though by September Lily had progressed so much that the lessons were really just an excuse to ride out together, exploring the landscape around Chisum Ranch. Finn showed her his favorite places, the hidden valleys and high mesas, the spots where wildflowers grew thick in spring, and where deer came to drink at sunset. Lily soaked it all in with an enthusiasm that made him see familiar sights with fresh eyes. One October afternoon, they rode farther than usual, following a trail that wound up into the foothills. The aspens were turning gold, and the air had that crisp quality that promised winter was coming. At the top of a ridge, they stopped to rest the horses and take in the view. The land stretched out below them in shades of brown and gold and green, vast and beautiful and untamed. "I never imagined anything like this existed," Lily said, her voice full of wonder. "When I read about the West in books, I thought they were exaggerating. But if anything, words don't do it justice." "It gets in your blood," Finn agreed. "Once you've lived here, anywhere else feels too small, too contained." Lily glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "Is that why you never left, even when things got hard after your father died?" "Partly," Finn said. "But also this is home. My father's buried here and my grandparents before him. My roots go deep into this soil. Leaving would have felt like abandoning all of that." "Do you ever wish you had seen more of the world, though?" Lily asked. "Other places, other ways of living?" Finn considered the question honestly. "Sometimes," he admitted. "When I was younger, I used to dream about going to California, seeing the ocean, but life had other plans and I've made peace with that. What I have here is enough." "Is it?" Lily asked softly, and when he turned to look at her, he saw vulnerability in her eyes. "Is what you have enough? Or is it just that you've convinced yourself it has to be?" The question struck deeper than Finn expected. He had told himself for so long that he was content, that wanting more was just inviting disappointment, but Lily's presence in his life had awakened longings he thought he had buried. Not for travel or adventure necessarily, but for connection, for intimacy, for building a life with someone instead of just getting through each day alone. "Before I met you, it was enough," he said finally. "But now I want more. I want a future that includes you, Lily. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to show you every beautiful place I know and discover new ones together. I want to build something real and lasting, something that matters." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I want all of that too," she said. "So much that it scares me sometimes. I've only been here 6 months and already I can't imagine being anywhere else, being with anyone else." Finn dismounted and helped her down from Daisy, and then he was holding her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her body against his. "Marry me," he said into her hair. "I know we haven't known each other long, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Marry me, Lily." She pulled back just enough to look up at him, her face radiant with joy. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, Finn, I'll marry you." They were married in November in the same church where Lily taught her evening classes. Reverend Martinez performed the ceremony, and it seemed like half the town showed up to witness it. Lily wore a simple white dress that her aunt had helped her sew, and Finn wore his best suit, the one he had worn to his father's funeral. When they exchanged vows, Finn's voice was steady and clear, and when he kissed his bride, the assembled crowd cheered and stomped their feet. Lily's aunt and uncle gifted them a small piece of land adjacent to their own ranch, and several of Finn's friends from the Double Bar Ranch helped him build a cabin. It was modest, just 3 rooms and a porch, but it was theirs. Lily furnished it with care, buying some things new and refinishing others she found secondhand. She made curtains for the windows and braided rugs for the floors, and by the time they moved in just before Christmas, it felt like home. Their first winter together was cold but happy. Finn continued working at the Double Bar Ranch, and Lily kept teaching her evening classes. On Sundays, even when snow covered the ground, they would ride out together, bundled in layers of wool and leather. Lily had long since conquered her fear of horses, and now she rode with confidence and skill, handling even spirited mounts with ease. In February, Lily discovered she was expecting a child. The news filled Finn with a combination of joy and terror. He had always wanted children, but the reality of becoming a father suddenly made everything feel more serious, more real. What if he was not good enough? What if he failed to provide for his family? What if something went wrong during the birth, as it so often did out here where doctors were scarce and medical knowledge limited? Lily seemed to sense his fears, because one evening as they sat by the fire, she took his hand and said, "We're going to be fine, Finn. All of us. I know you're worried, but we'll figure it out together, just like we've figured out everything else." "I just want to keep you safe," Finn said. "You and the baby. I couldn't bear it if something happened to either of you." "Then we'll be careful," Lily said. "I'll stop riding in a few months, even though I'll hate giving it up temporarily. We'll make sure I have help during the birth, someone experienced, and you'll be there with me, and that will make all the difference." Finn pulled her close, marveling at her strength. She was facing the same uncertainties he was, plus the physical ordeal of pregnancy and childbirth, yet she seemed so much more composed than he felt. "How did I get so lucky?" he murmured. "Finding you, convincing you to stay, getting to spend my life with you. I'm the lucky one," Lily countered. "If that horse hadn't bolted, if you hadn't been there to catch me, I would have left New Mexico thinking I was too weak for this life. Instead, you showed me I was stronger than I knew. You gave me the courage to build the life I wanted instead of settling for the one other people expected me to have." As spring arrived and Lily's belly grew round, they talked endlessly about the future. They debated names, prepared the small second bedroom as a nursery, and made plans for expanding the cabin once they had more children. Finn built a cradle from pine wood, sanding it until it was smooth as silk, and Lily sewed tiny clothes and blankets. Her aunt, a woman named Martha Brennan, who had raised 4 children of her own, checked on Lily regularly and promised to be there for the birth. She also began teaching Lily more domestic skills, the cooking and preserving and household management that Lily had never learned in her privileged Philadelphia upbringing. Lily proved as quick a student in the kitchen as she had been with horses, and soon she was baking bread that rivaled anything Martha could produce and putting up preserves for the winter to come. In early September, after a long and difficult labor that left Finn pacing anxiously outside while Martha and another experienced woman attended to Lily, their son was born. They named him Thomas, after Finn's father, and when Finn held the tiny, squalling infant for the first time, he felt something in his chest crack open. This was what mattered, he realized. Not just surviving, not just getting through each day, but building something meaningful. Creating a family, a home, a life full of love. Lily recovered slowly from the birth, and for the first few months she was too exhausted to do much beyond caring for Thomas. Finn took on extra work around their property, planting a larger garden, building a chicken coop, doing everything he could to make their lives easier. At night, he would walk the floor with Thomas when the baby would not sleep, singing the old songs his father had sung to him, and during the day he would rush home from the ranch as early as possible, desperate to see his wife and son. By the time Thomas was 6 months old, Lily was itching to get back on a horse. They started with short rides, just around their property, with Thomas strapped securely to Lily's chest in a sling she had made. The baby seemed to love the movement, his eyes wide as he took in the world from this new vantage point. As Thomas grew older, they would take him on longer rides, and eventually Finn built a small saddle that allowed the boy to ride in front of him, secure in his father's arms. The years passed with a gentle rhythm. Finn continued working at the Double Bar Ranch, eventually becoming foreman, a position that came with better pay and more responsibility. Lily resumed her teaching, and as word of her skills spread, she attracted students from neighboring ranches and farms. Some traveled for hours just to attend her classes, and she was deeply moved by their dedication. They had 2 more children, a daughter named Rose when Thomas was 3, and another son named James 2 years after that. Each birth brought the same mixture of fear and wonder, and each time, Lily came through strong and healthy. Their cabin, which had seemed spacious when it was just the 2 of them, became cramped and chaotic with 3 active children, so Finn and some friends expanded it, adding 2 more rooms and a larger porch. Thomas inherited his father's way with horses and was riding independently by the age of 5. Rose was quieter, more bookish, content to spend hours looking at picture books or helping her mother in the garden. James was fearless and energetic, always getting into mischief and giving his parents gray hairs with his antics. On a warm Sunday afternoon when Thomas was 8, Rose 5, and James 3, Finn took the whole family on a ride to the canyon with the spring-fed pool, the place where he had first told Lily he loved her. The children splashed in the water while Finn and Lily sat on the same boulder they had shared years before, watching their family with deep contentment. "You remember the first time we came here?" Lily asked, leaning her head on Finn's shoulder. "You told me you wanted me to stay, and I thought my heart would burst. I was so happy." "I remember," Finn said, wrapping his arm around her. "I was terrified you would say no, that you would go back to Philadelphia, and I would never see you again." "I couldn't have left even if I had wanted to," Lily said. "I was already in love with you by then. I think I started falling the moment you caught me off that runaway horse." "And now look at us," Finn said, gesturing to the children. Thomas was teaching Rose how to skip stones across the water while James tried to catch tadpoles with his bare hands. 3 beautiful children, a home we built together, a life I never could have imagined when I was just a lonely ranch hand mending fences. "We've been so fortunate," Lily agreed. Then she turned to look at him, her green eyes serious. "Finn, there's something I need to tell you. I've been waiting for the right moment, and I think this might be it." Finn's pulse quickened. "What is it? Is something wrong?" "Not wrong," Lily said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Just unexpected. I'm pregnant again." For a moment, Finn could only stare at her. Then a grin split his face and he laughed, pulling her into a tight embrace. "That's wonderful," he said. "That's incredible. How are you feeling? When is the baby due?" "I'm feeling fine, just tired. And I think the baby will come in late winter, probably February or March." Lily pulled back to look at him, her expression turning more serious. "I know things will be tight with another mouth to feed and the cabin will be even more crowded, but Finn, I'm so happy. I love our life. I love our family. I love you." "I love you too," Finn said, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "More than I can ever say, and we'll manage just like we always do. We'll make it work." Their 4th child, another daughter they named Alina, was born in March during a late winter storm. The birth was easier than the others, as though Lily's body had finally figured out what to do, and within a few weeks she was back to her usual energetic self. Thomas doted on his new sister. Rose helped with diaper changes and rocking the baby to sleep, and James mostly ignored her in favor of his own adventures. As the children grew, Finn made sure to teach each of them to ride as thoroughly as he had taught Lily. Thomas took to it naturally, but Rose was nervous at first, her temperament more cautious than her older brother's. Finn was patient with her, using the same techniques he had used with Lily all those years ago, helping her understand horses before expecting her to control them. Slowly, Rose's confidence grew, and by the time she was 8, she was nearly as skilled as Thomas. James was fearless on horseback, which made him a joy and a terror in equal measure. More than once, Finn had to chase after the boy when he galloped off without permission, and more than once, James fell and got back up with nothing more than a bruised ego. Finn tried to instill caution without crushing his son's spirit, a delicate balance that tested his patience daily. Alina was still too young to ride on her own, but she loved being carried on one of her parents' horses, laughing with delight at the motion. Finn could already see she would be a natural rider, utterly unafraid and eager for speed. One evening when Finn was 40 and Lily 38, after the children had been put to bed and the house was finally quiet, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the distant mountains. The sky was streaked with orange and pink and gold, and the air smelled of sage and dust and the coming night. "I've been thinking," Lily said, her hand clasped in Finn's, "about how much has changed since that day you saved me from the runaway horse. I was so lost then, so unsure of who I was or what I wanted. And now I have this whole life, this wonderful, chaotic, exhausting, beautiful life. Sometimes I can hardly believe it's real." "It's real," Finn assured her. "Every bit of it." "I know," Lily said. "But Finn, I want you to know something. I want you to know that you didn't just save me that day. You changed the entire course of my life. If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't taught me to ride without fear, I would have gone back to Philadelphia and married some man I didn't love and spent the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Instead, I have you. I have our children. I have this place that feels more like home than anywhere I've ever lived. You gave me all of that." Finn's throat tightened with emotion. You gave me just as much, he said. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You reminded me what it felt like to be truly alive. You brought joy and purpose and meaning to my days. Every morning I wake up grateful that you said yes when I asked you to stay, that you took a chance on me, on us. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars begin to emerge in the darkening sky. Then Lily said, I want to do something. I want to teach other women to ride. Not just the basics like I teach in my evening classes, but really ride, the way you taught me. I've met so many women over the years who are afraid of horses or who ride timidly because no one ever showed them they could be confident and skilled. I want to help them the way you helped me. Finn turned to look at her, his face thoughtful. That's a wonderful idea, he said slowly. You would be good at it. Patient but firm, understanding but demanding, and there's definitely a need for it. I thought maybe once Alina is a bit older and doesn't need me quite so much, Lily continued, her voice growing more animated as she spoke about the idea. I could offer lessons on Sunday afternoons here on our property. We have plenty of space and enough gentle horses for students to learn on. I wouldn't charge much, just enough to make it worth the time. What do you think? I think you should do it, Finn said without hesitation. I think it's perfect, Lily. You've always been a teacher at heart, and this combines that with your love of riding. How could it be anything but right? Lily's face lit up with that same brilliant smile that had captivated Finn from the very beginning. Thank you, she said, for always supporting my dreams, even the ones I don't know I have until they come tumbling out. That's what marriage is, Finn said simply. Supporting each other, believing in each other, helping each other become the best versions of ourselves. True to her word, when Alina turned 5 and started spending more time playing with her siblings than clinging to her mother, Lily began offering riding lessons to women. She started small, with just 2 students, but word spread quickly. Within a year, she had a waiting list, and women came from as far as 20 miles away to learn from her. Lily was a natural teacher, combining encouragement with high expectations. She never let her students settle for timid or sloppy riding, but she also never made them feel inadequate or foolish. Many of the women who came to her had stories similar to Lily's own, tales of close calls or frightening experiences that had left them afraid. Under Lily's patient instruction, they learned to master their fear, to understand and control their mounts, to ride with the confidence that came from true skill. Finn would sometimes watch from a distance as Lily taught, marveling at how far she had come from the terrified young woman clinging desperately to a runaway horse. She sat her mount with easy grace now, her commands clear and confident, her understanding of horses deep and intuitive. She had become everything he had seen the potential for on that first day, and more besides. As their children grew into teenagers and then young adults, Finn and Lily watched with pride as each found their own path. Thomas stayed close to home, taking a job at the Double Bar Ranch and eventually courting a young woman named Sarah from a neighboring property. Rose surprised everyone by developing a passion for medicine, and after much discussion and saving, they managed to send her to Santa Fe to study with a respected doctor who was training a few select students. James, true to form, joined a cattle drive to Montana one summer and returned full of stories and plans to start his own ranch someday. Alina, the youngest, proved to be the most gifted rider of them all, and by the time she was 15, she was helping her mother teach lessons and training horses with a skill that rivaled Finn's own. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Finn took Lily back to the canyon with the spring-fed pool. Their children were old enough now to manage without them for a day, and it felt like a luxury to have this time alone together. They swam in the cool water, ate the lunch Lily had packed, and lay in the shade of the cottonwoods, talking and laughing and remembering. 20 years, Lily said wonderingly. It's gone so fast, Finn. I feel like we just got married yesterday, and yet when I think of everything we've experienced together, it feels like a lifetime. A good lifetime, Finn said, running his fingers through her hair, which was starting to show threads of silver among the auburn. The best lifetime I could have asked for. Do you have any regrets? Lily asked, turning to look at him. Anything you wish had been different? Finn considered the question seriously. Their life had not been without challenges. There had been lean years when money was tight, and they worried about making ends meet. There had been illnesses and injuries, times when they feared for their children's safety or health. There had been disagreements and arguments, moments when they had hurt each other without meaning to. But through it all, they had held fast to each other, committed to working through whatever came their way. No regrets, he finally said. Not a single one. Every challenge we've faced has made us stronger. Every difficult moment has taught us something valuable. And all the good times, all the joy and love and laughter, that's been worth more than any hardship we've endured. I feel the same way, Lily said softly. When I was a girl in Philadelphia, I used to read romance novels and dream about finding true love. But those stories always ended with the wedding, as though getting married was the destination instead of the beginning. Now I know the truth. The real love story isn't the courtship, it's everything that comes after. It's building a life together, facing obstacles together, growing and changing together. That's the story worth telling. Finn kissed her then, a slow, sweet kiss that held 20 years of devotion and desire. When they broke apart, he said, "Then we're writing a hell of a story, you and I." They stayed at the canyon until the sun began to set, reluctant to return to the responsibilities and routines of home. But eventually they mounted their horses and rode back, arriving just as the last light faded from the sky. Their children were waiting on the porch, and when Thomas saw them, he called out, "We made dinner." Well, Rose made dinner and the rest of us tried not to get in her way, but still, it's ready whenever you are. The house was warm and full of laughter that night, the table crowded with their growing family. Thomas's sweetheart Sarah had joined them, and she and Rose were deep in conversation about the anatomy of horses, a topic that fascinated them both. James was telling Alina some elaborate story that was probably 90% exaggeration, and Alina was hanging on every word, her eyes wide with delight. Finn looked around the table, at the faces of the people he loved most in the world, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. This was what he had been meant for, he realized. Not just to work with horses or to make a living, but to create this, a family bound together by love and respect and shared history. And it had all started with a moment of chance, a runaway horse and a terrified young woman and a decision to help. As the years continued to pass, Finn and Lily settled into the comfortable rhythm of middle age and then the slower pace of their later years. They watched Thomas marry Sarah and start his own family, giving them grandchildren who filled the house with noise and energy. Rose returned from Santa Fe after completing her medical training and opened a small practice in Chisum Ranch, becoming the town's first female doctor and a source of immense pride for her parents. James eventually did start his own ranch, a day's ride north, and though he only visited every few months, the reunions were always joyous. Alina married a skilled horse trainer from Texas, and together they ran a breeding operation that produced some of the finest horses in the territory. Finn retired from the Double Bar Ranch when he was 60, his body finally beginning to feel the effects of decades of hard physical labor. His knees ached in cold weather, and his hands were gnarled with arthritis, but he could still ride, and that was all that mattered to him. Lily continued teaching riding lessons for a few more years, but eventually she too decided it was time to slow down. They spent their days tending their garden, playing with their grandchildren, and taking long, leisurely rides through the landscape they both loved. One spring morning when Finn was 65 and Lily 63, they rode out early to watch the sunrise from their favorite ridge. The aspens were just beginning to leaf out, and the air was fresh with the promise of renewal. They sat side by side on their horses, watching the sky shift from dark to light, from stars to brilliant streaks of pink and gold. "You remember when I was afraid to ride?" Lily asked, her voice quiet in the still morning air. "When I thought I would never be able to control a horse, never be able to enjoy this the way you do." "I remember," Finn said. "But I also remember thinking even then that you would be fine, that you just needed someone to teach you properly and give you confidence." "You did more than that," Lily said, turning to look at him. In the growing light, her face was lined with age, but to Finn she was as beautiful as the day he had first caught her in his arms. "You taught me to trust myself. You showed me I was capable of things I never imagined. And you loved me so completely that I learned to love myself the same way." Finn reached across the space between their horses and took her hand. "You did the same for me," he said. "I was so closed off before I met you, so convinced that work was enough and wanting more was dangerous. You opened me up, Lily. You taught me it was okay to hope, to dream, to build something bigger than just survival." They watched the sun clear the horizon, spilling golden light across the land. Somewhere below them, their children and grandchildren were beginning their days, carrying forward the legacy Finn and Lily had created. It was a good legacy, Finn thought. One built on love and courage and the willingness to take chances. "We've had a good run," Lily said, and though there was sadness in her voice, there was also deep satisfaction. "Whatever happens from here, I want you to know I wouldn't change a thing. Not a single moment, not a single choice. This life with you has been everything I ever wanted and more than I dared to hope for." "Same here," Finn said, his throat tight with emotion. "Every day with you has been a gift, Lily. Every single one." They sat there until the sun was fully up and the day had truly begun. Two people who had found each other against the odds and built something lasting. Then they turned their horses toward home, riding side by side the way they had for more than 40 years, partners in every sense of the word. The years that followed were gentler, marked by quiet contentment rather than grand adventure. Finn's health began to decline slowly, his body finally giving in to the demands he had placed on it over a lifetime of hard work. Lily, too, had her share of ailments, but they faced each challenge together, supporting each other through the inevitable diminishments of age. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The party lasted all day and into the evening, full of music and laughter and stories. When everyone finally left and Finn and Lily were alone in the house that had been their home for so many decades, they sat together on the porch, holding hands in the darkness. 50 years, Finn said, shaking his head in wonder. Half a century. When I think back to that scared young woman on the runaway horse, I could never have imagined this, all of this. I'm glad you caught me, Lily said simply. In every way that matters, you caught me, Finn. You saved my life that day, and then you made my life worth saving. You did the same for me, Finn replied, raising her hand to his lips and kissing it gently. We saved each other, I think. That's what love is. Not one person rescuing another, but two people choosing each other, day after day, year after year, no matter what comes. On a quiet afternoon in late summer, when Finn was 73, he and Lily took one last ride to the canyon with the spring-fed pool. Finn was not as steady in the saddle as he once had been, and they had to stop several times to rest, but they made it. They sat on their boulder, watching the water flow, listening to the rustle of cottonwood leaves, breathing in the sage-scented air. "Thank you," Finn said, though Lily had not asked him for anything. "For taking a chance on a lonely cowboy who had nothing to offer but his heart, for staying when you could have left, for building this life with me, for loving me so well for so long." Lily leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "It was never a chance," she said. "From the moment you caught me, I was yours. I think I knew it even then, even when I was too scared and disoriented to understand what I was feeling. My heart recognized you, Finn. It recognized home." They stayed at the canyon until the shadows grew long, reluctant to leave this place that held so many memories. But eventually they mounted their horses and made their slow way back, arriving home as the stars began to appear. That night, they lay in bed holding each other, grateful for one more day together, one more sunset shared, one more chapter in the story they had been writing for 50 years. Finn passed away peacefully in his sleep 3 months later in November, 51 years after he had married the love of his life. Lily woke to find him beside her, his face peaceful, his hand still clasped in hers. The grief was crushing, even though she had known this day would come. He had been her partner, her teacher, her best friend, the father of her children, and the love of her life. The world without him seemed colorless, empty, wrong, but Lily did not succumb to despair. She mourned deeply, allowing herself to feel the full weight of her loss, but she also celebrated Finn's life and the time they had shared. At his funeral, she stood before the assembled crowd, their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and she told the story of how they had met. She described the runaway horse, the terrifying ride, the moment when Finn had caught the bridle and brought the mare to a stop. She talked about how he had taught her to ride without fear, and how that lesson had extended far beyond horses, becoming a metaphor for their entire life together. "Finn showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear," she said, her voice strong despite the tears streaming down her face. "It's feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. It's trusting that even if you fall, someone will be there to catch you." He caught me that day, and he continued catching me every day for the next 51 years. And now, even though he's gone, I still feel held by his love. That's his final gift to me, and I will treasure it for whatever time I have left. Lily lived for 5 more years after Finn's death, years she spent surrounded by family and filled with the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. She continued to ride almost until the end, though her mounts became gentler and her rides shorter. On clear days, she would ride out to the canyon alone, sitting on their boulder and talking to Finn as though he were still beside her, telling him about the grandchildren's achievements and the great-grandchildren's antics, about the weather and the state of the garden and how much she missed him. When Lily passed away in her sleep at the age of 73, in the same bed where Finn had died 5 years earlier, there was sadness, but also a sense of rightness. She was buried beside Finn in the small cemetery outside Chisum Ranch, under a cottonwood tree that had been planted the year they were married. Their children and grandchildren gathered to say goodbye, and Rose, who had inherited her mother's gift for words, spoke at the graveside. "My parents were ordinary people who lived in extraordinary love," she said. "They didn't have wealth or fame or power. What they had was each other, and that was enough. They built a life from scratch, starting with a chance meeting and a runaway horse. They faced every challenge together and celebrated every joy together. They taught us, their children, what real partnership looks like, what real commitment looks like, what real love looks like. And now they're together again, riding through some celestial landscape, happy and whole and free from pain. We will miss them every day, but we will also carry forward the lessons they taught us and the love they shared so generously. As the years passed and generations succeeded generations, the story of Finn and Lily became family legend, told and retold to children and grandchildren. It became a story about courage and chance and the transformative power of love. It became a reminder that sometimes the moments that change our lives forever come when we least expect them, and that the person who saves us might not look like a hero at first glance, might just be a cowboy mending a fence on an ordinary afternoon. The ranch they had built together stayed in the family, passed down through the generations, each new owner adding their own chapter to the story while honoring the foundation Finn and Lily had laid. The cabin they had lived in was preserved and maintained, becoming a gathering place for family reunions and celebrations. And on the mantel, in a place of honor, sat a photograph taken on their 50th anniversary, showing an elderly couple sitting side by side on horseback, hands clasped between them, faces weathered by time but eyes still bright with love. Their legacy was not just the land or the family tree or the stories passed down. It was the lesson they had lived so fully, that love is not just a feeling but a choice, renewed every day. It was the understanding that saving someone doesn't have to mean grand gestures or dramatic moments. Sometimes it means teaching them skills and giving them confidence and believing in them, until they learn to believe in themselves. It was the knowledge that the best things in life often start with a single moment of courage, a willingness to step forward and help, to take a chance on another person, and on the possibility of building something beautiful together. And in the end, that was the truest part of the story. Not just that a cowboy had rescued a woman from a runaway horse, or that he had taught her to ride without fear, though both of those things were true and important. The real story was what came after. The years of partnership and parenting, of challenge and triumph, of ordinary days made extraordinary by the presence of someone who truly understood you and loved you anyway. That was the story worth telling, the one that mattered, the one that lived on long after Finn and Lily were gone, inspiring new generations to seek out their own versions of that transformative, enduring, world-changing love.